Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the entire United States. Good morning to the entire world receiving our signals via the magic of El Internet created by we the people, the ARPANET. Folks, they're trying to take it. They're trying to take it, but we won't let them. Look, it's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great program, but it is also a sad day. Whether you are a Catholic, I am a former Catholic. I'm a former a whole lot of things. But today we've lost Pope Francis, a revolutionary pope, one who really lived. He was a Jesuit. He lived by the tenets of Jesus Christ, the good word of Jesus Christ. He believed in much of what the good book said that one would expect good people to do. Completely anathema. And yes, I will make this political because our brother, the Pope, was a political entity. Well, the Pope has always been a political entity, but more so than many when it came to justice, when it came to honoring migrants, when it came to honoring women, even as he never overtly went against many of what I call arcane writings of the good book, he made sure that everybody felt that they were, knew that they were human and knew they were worthy. But without further ado, let's go ahead and visit with the geniuses in the studios, the brothers who really make things happen out here, El Señor Howard Reynolds and Jacques Van Beber.
Well, indeed, a somber day. I saw that this morning as I woke up and turned the news on and went, no. But all of our times do come. Yes. And I'm sure that they'll be welcoming him upstairs with all the other popes. And that's about all I've got to say. Jack, you got a quarter page of wisdom there. So we can't wait to get to it. What you got, man?
All right. Good morning, Egberto. How are you?
Good morning, Jack. How you doing, my dear brother?
I'm good. The GOP propaganda machine is spewing out a false narrative that Trump's policies are Bernie Sanders and AOC's policies to discredit them for their fighting oligarchy tour, which is reaching millions. As anti-Trump protests show no sign of slowing down, Trump voters are experiencing buyer's remorse. Oligarchs, be afraid. Be very afraid. People are waking up.
Yep. Had a friend of mine, he's colleague. He and I argue on Facebook. I mean, he's like total, completely scarlet MAGA.
Uh-oh.
And it just disgusts me. But he said, I told him, I said, yeah, there's a lot of people that have voters' remorse right now. So he sends me this post off of Fox News that CNN says, oh, no one regrets their vote to Trump. And I just wrote him back. I said, so now you're going to start believing Fox News after you railed against them so much? Come on, man.
You mean CNN? Yeah.
Well, CNN probably is a little more truthful than Fox, but I'm not sure how.
No, but what he was saying is that there's a poll out from CNN that said only 2% of the Fox, it's on 2% of MAGA wouldn't change your vote. But what they forget to say is that 2% did say they would change your vote, and that would have changed the election.
What do they ask? 2 people? Hey, you on the street over there, what do you think? Would you change your vote from Trump? They're probably going to go, oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? And that's enough. That's enough for you. We don't want to hijack your show too much. So, what you got for us today,
man? We got a great show. But before I get started, I want to pick up on what you just said there, because it's easy to say nobody regrets the vote when they're when the news source that they get is a task of misinformation. I had a friend over last night, hadn't seen in a while, and he came over to visit. And he's a good progressive dude, and he was concerned that everybody thinks that what's happening right now is that AOC is going to run for president, and that if that happens, it's a sure way for us to lose, etc. I don't know if AOC is going to run for president or not. AOC is a very smart woman, and while people like to make caricatures of her, the reason they do that is because, again, she's so good at what she does. AOC, if you watch C-SPAN and you watch her in different panels, or you watch her in different committee meetings, she is generally the person most informed, most researched, who knows the material more than most. And in fact, many Republicans have been advised in those committee meetings not to challenge her, lest they pretty much look pretty silly and uninformed as they really are. So if she were to decide to run, she would be quite a competent person. But I don't think, if she thought running would lessens the chances of the appropriate side winning, I don't think she'd run. Now, I met her at a Netroots Nation and interviewed her just before she won her election. And in fact, told her that, I knew she was going to win, even though she was going against a stalwart of the Congress. That is just how impressive she is when one meets her. So he was concerned about that. But one of the things, he's an older guy, and one of the things that really scared me the most is how appeasing he was willing to be, how much he was willing to change his democratic stances simply to appease what he called the center. And the one important thing I asked him to do is, please define the center for me. And while he attempted, he really couldn't determine what the center really meant. Because when we sat down and started discussing policy, you guys hear us talk about this all of the times. When we sat down to discuss what the American people want and what he thought even MAGA would want, it turned out that the things that the things that progressives stand for is effectively what north of 60% and many times 80% of Americans want. So there's a dichotomy difference between what you hear in the news media as far as what Americans are looking for, or what the center is, etc., and what the real story is, what Americans really say that they want. And bridging that gap is the difficulty, because when you speak to your MAGA brothers and sisters and figure out why they're so mad, right? It's the same reasons that your progressive brothers and sisters are mad. It's a system that's not working for them. But again, the influx of the different things, the different social issues that make no sense, the policies on whenever you start talking about what is a woman or what is a man or things that are so inconsequential, make most people disregard the actual things that matter. And the right is very effective of doing this. And what I try to explain to him is that is how the right operates, and we shouldn't succumb to it. Just as they are bold in pushing misinformation and lying to the American people, progressives need to be just as bold in not just truth telling, but actually showing the evil that the right actually, and I don't say this, and look, if you're a person on the right, I'm not speaking to you, because misinformation is well calculated. There are bodies out there designed to make misinformation seem truthful. And unless you're schooled on many issues, unless you follow this stuff 24/7, anyone can fall for the misinformation. All of us will fall for a certain amount of disinformation when packaged a certain way. And it is incumbent on us to actually, and when I say on us now, I'm talking about, in this case, the Politics Done Right team, to do our job and not succumb to, we get a lot of calls here that has a lot of bad information. We get a lot of comments here in the chats that are completely and entirely ill-informed. And if we just cuss that person out or mean to that person or call that person stupid or whatever, that is not going to be the answer. That is not going to be the answer. The answer is going to be to try to get to where they are and try to bring them over. Bruce Pollard, our good friend who did a couple of Thursdays for Neil Aquino, he sent me an article that I just got to read this morning. But interesting enough, that article that he brought me was something that we discussed before, and that is what's happening to government right now, how Trump is dismantling government, how Trump is filling government with a whole bunch of incompetent people. But there's also a potential reason for that. And one of the reasons is to make government so dysfunctional that it opens the door for a bad act. And this bad act, they don't care what the bad act is. It could be a bad act of terrorism on any side, one that may bring down a building, one that may release biological agents, one that may release dirty bomb-related, a lot of things that they are just waiting for with their incompetence. You shut down the department that looks into, I forget you breaking into their computer systems, that department. He shut down a whole lot of these areas that monitor the Russian interference in cyber attacks, etc. He shut down a whole lot of these things, which leave these things open to us all. And the idea is pretty much waiting for something to occur which will create a reason, a rationale to declare martial law. And if you take a look at on Tyranny, or whatever the name of that book is, you'll see all the steps being taken right now for Trump to effect something of that sort when the opportunity arises. And that opportunity with a dysfunctional government is quite possible. A lot of things covered here. And the reason a lot of this can occur is, first and foremost, something that the right has been doing for a long time. And that is getting Americans to look at government as an entity to be hated. And, they know that doing that kind of a stuff works. After all, it has worked with the dehumanization of certain people. It has worked with the dehumanization of women. It has worked with the dehumanization of Palestinians. It has worked with the dehumanization of immigrants. It has worked with the dehumanization of people of color, such that when bad things start occurring to women, it's not a big deal. So Donald Trump can, as alleged and has found guilty of sexual wrong with women that a judge has called rape, and he's still president of the United States even after harming women. Because if you dehumanize women, then it doesn't matter what you do to women. These troglodytes that we have in office can treat them like objects. So that's what we have in the president. You dehumanize Palestinians. The Palestinians that did a bad thing, you can take their humanity away so that it doesn't matter that while the terrorists killed 1,200 Israelis, that 40, they're claiming something about 50,000 dead Palestinians. We know it's way over 100,000 dead Palestinians, but who cares? They're not human beings. The dehumanization of the Palestinian meant that Israel's military could decimate, flatten Gaza with women, children, innocent people, flatten it, kill them, annihilate them, and then just say, well, look at what they did. These are not human beings anyway. And there's so many videos online to show that these people are not humans, according to the Israeli soldiers and others. The dehumanization of immigrants, that somebody who purport to be a Christian, as we know, the Bible says, open your doors to the foreigner. Open your doors to the foreigner. That's a biblical order. Open your doors to the foreigner. We don't care. We have sufficiently dehumanized who these foreigners are. They're the people from the mental institutions and the jails and the rejects from each of their countries, right? They're not human beings. They're criminals. Donald Trump came into office calling them rapists and others. He must have been looking in the mirror, eh? He must have been looking in the mirror. Dehumanize the immigrants, so deporting the immigrants, so throwing the immigrants in maximum security prisons where they're further dehumanized doesn't matter, because again, we have been desensitized to treating other human beings that we consider less than humans as humans. Understand what's going on with our psychology here, folks. Understand that this is slowly giving us cyanide so that our bodies become immune to the cyanide. All these bad things that's done. Think about the natives. You don't have to, right? They're not human. So we could have effected genocide on them. They're not humans. It's okay. They're not like you and me. They're not. So therefore, they don't feel pain like you and me, right? They don't feel hurt like you and me, right? But no, they do. And they love family just like you and me. And then, of course, think about people of color and specifically Black people. If you can think that they're not like you, if you can muster the thought in your mind that somehow they're more, that they are intrinsically violent. If you can think about all these things and you can get stories that tells you that that is a reality, then when you see cops blowing their heads off, you can go into a jury room, and even as you have photos and videos and all the other things that show you they were wronged, that they were murdered, that they were killed, that you can listen to that officer and say, yeah, that was self-defense. After all, that was a dangerous person masquerading as a human being. Understand what has been done to us from our inception. We've learned how to dehumanize those that we want to either enslave, take advantage of, rip off, steal, control, that becomes women, immigrants, people of color, and all. Understand what is being done to us. And this is not a right-wing, left-wing, liberal thing, because there are a hell of a lot of progressives that are misogynists. There are a hell of a lot of progressives that are racists. There are a hell of a lot of progressives that are xenophobes. This is a culture. This is something that we have to all, as a society that claims to be humane, as a society that claims to be righteous, these are all things that we have to work on ourselves. And we look at the death of this good Pope, a Pope that I was not always in agreement with, but a Pope that told it like it is, a Pope that tried to lay out much of what I just said. These realities. So, folks, look into your own heart, your own minds, and think about how much of this indoctrination has been inculcated within your mind and form parts of your psyche that have allowed you internally to dehumanize the other. And that other, many a times, includes your own family. Think about that. I have a lot more to talk about, but let's go ahead and go to some of our calls. Let's start with Brother Tag. Come on in, Tag.
Hey, Egberto. Do you remember there used to be something about the guy driving the bus throwing the steering wheel out the window?
I don't know that story. Tell me about it.
Well, I don't remember. It's something way back in my life, but it was just like anybody who would pull the steering wheel off a moving bus going down the highway and throw it out the window is just asking for calamity. You can't drive the bus if you don't have a steering wheel. And I think maybe this is something Johnny could elaborate on. He probably has seen it. But I'm going to have to look back on Google and see if I can find out where that came from. But it's just an image that sticks in my mind. If you're in the driver's seat, you need to keep that steering wheel in your hands.
Yes.
You follow me, bud?
Yeah, I follow you. I understand what you're trying to say. Right now, you're pretty much saying we are rudderless. You're using the steering wheel for a bus. I'm using the rudder for a boat. They serve the same purpose. You're absolutely right.
Well, put yourself in a seat on that bus going down the highway at 80 miles an hour, like they drive in Mexico, and seeing the driver pull the steering wheel off the column and chuck it out the window, and all of a sudden you see the steering wheel going by the window. It's like, that's the picture I see right now where we're at in this country. We got a fool on the hill, and he's just thrown the steering wheel out the window, and we're on a bus without any way to control it.
The thing about it, you have to ask yourself, Tag, and I do this often. It's why. When you have somebody that is, look, the Republican Party and the neoliberal Democrats for a long time have really tried to discount the power, not the power, but the goodness of government, right? That they have been completely bought out by an evil portion of our corporate sector, right? And the idea is the corporation needs to be fed. All of this is economics, and it takes a whole lot of 1 hour programs and maybe we'll do something like that sometime. But all of this is based on the capitalist economy and what's known as end state capitalism. And it's the sad thing about it, Tag, it is such a simple mathematical formula. When you have a very small part of an economy that belongs to all of us growing at a larger percentage than the rest of the economy, eventually you run out of who you can eat, who can serve. And I explained that many a times that said, there's a time we had slavery. Slavery then became inefficient in the capitalist model. So we created a new form called the employee. And as things went, and by the way, because from my earlier monologue, because we had already dehumanized those others, the black folks, the Chinese folks, the Indian folks, the native folks, we could abuse them for labor, abuse them for everything else. But as we've abused all those that we can abuse, it finally comes down to the rest of the masses, the American people, right? The rest of the American people. And that's who's feeling the pain. MAGA is pissed off, but they are just the result. Their pain is just the result of end state capitalism based on that very simple formula. The corporate class has to keep eating. Go ahead.
Can I say this much, Egberto? The Bible, which I'm a Christian, the Bible states over and over and over again that the people who have the most are responsible for taking care of the least of us, or the least of them.
Yes.
And to me, it says right now that these people who have the most have no interest or desire of following God's commands of what to do with the riches that he has bestowed on some of these people. They want to keep it for themselves. They don't want to put it back into God's work. And I just think that they're going to be spited if they don't follow what they've been brought up to believe. Maybe they don't believe in the Bible. Maybe they aren't Christians, but they need to do that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. For those who are Christians, right? You're absolutely right. He talks about the thread in a needle and the camel through us. I don't remember the phrase that the Bible uses. Yeah. I was a Christian for most of, not most of my life, but my entire life in Panama. First a Catholic, then a Baptist, came over to the States and became a Maranatha, and now a humanist. But again, I followed and lived by the tenets for a very, very long time. And I still live by the tenets of Christianity, really. But you're absolutely right. And the thing about it is, I do take exception with one comment that you made when you say what God bestowed upon them. Let's assume I'm a Christian. What I have to say is that they don't live by that tenet because God did not bestow that wealth onto them. That wealth was formed in a system that legally allowed them to steal that wealth. But we'll go into that a second time because I got other calls that I got to take. But thank you so kindly for your call, my brother Tag. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for what you do. And let's hear from Johnny. See ya.
Thank you, brother. I want to welcome Joe from Los Angeles, California in the chat. Lee the Beer Cat from Austin, Texas in the chat. Glenn Ryan from Katy, Texas in the chat. Tim McGraw, I don't know where you're from, in the chat. We have Practice the Something MCG in the chat as well. Welcome. Eric Hayes from Atascocita, Kingwood in the chat. Well, Lav Goats also... okay, Lab Goats corrected me. It says, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. Thank you for that, Lab Goats. I have the smartest damn listeners in this damn country, man. And on Substack, I didn't get all of you, but whoa, you're full. I want to welcome Sheila McMullen, who says, why wouldn't she win? Again, I didn't say she wouldn't win, Sheila. I just said I know her, and I think if she thought she wouldn't, she then wouldn't run. Lisa's last words, it says, you can show them you can show them all the evil you want at times, but greedy ones out. But greed ones out. Unfortunately, wins out. I think she meant. Wins out. Yeah, there it is. Lisa also says, takes your power with grace. Gary Hurst, welcome. John A. Lisa also says, we have cyber attacks within the United States of America. That is sad. Yeah, you're absolutely right. John A. says it's a small group of really bad people, but there are some very generous and good rich people. Yes, there are. I don't dispute that at all. Never will get on the Trump bus. Okay, and let's see. Lisa's last words. Grace Garfield, welcome. Thelma J. Torrey, welcome. Mike, Sheila McMullen, Carlos, Jenny C., Patricia. There are too many to call out, but thank you for being here. Let's go to Brother Donald.
Hey, good morning, Egberto. How are you today?
Good morning, my brother. Talk to me.
Okay, I'm going to try something. Let's see if we don't mess it up. But what the Christian said to the humanist.
I don't know.
Hi
Tell
there,
me.
I'm one of those Jesus freaks. Hi there, I'm one of those Jesus freaks. I got to be kind to everyone I meet. I'm wearing this frown he turned upside down, grinning ear to ear because I'm heaven bound. If he can save someone like me, then he can save someone like you. If he can love someone like me, then he can love someone like you. TNOTW, treasures not of this world, we're just passing through. It's in the good book, it's written in red, and those are the words that my Jesus said. You love your neighbor like you love yourself. Don't ever put love upon no shelf. Pray for your enemies every day because you know that is the Jesus way. Because if he can love someone like me, and then you can finish the song. But that is Christianity minus religion. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And that's it.
Wait, Donald, did you write that?
Of course, but you can have it.
No, but what I'm saying is that, wait, hold on. That was pretty darn good. I have a poet, our good friend of the show, supporter of the show, Tom Zarnick from Michigan. He writes limericks all of the times, and whenever he prints it out at 3:00, I would always read it the very first time. I wouldn't do a test on it. I'll just read it out loud, and it is so good. I generally read it out in the beginning without mistakes. That's how good this guy is. And let me just tell you, that piece that you just wrote is not a limerick. It's a poem, but it's a darn good poem. You know, I wish you emailed. I'll tell you, email that to me. I'll put it up on my blog.
People asking me, what would Jesus do? Well, he saved my soul and he can save yours too. He's the way, the truth, and the light, and he can carry you through your darkest time. But that's it.
Hey, wait, hold on. Do you email? Do you do email?
Yeah, I can do an email.
Well, email it to me, Brother Donald. Email it to me, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. I love it, okay?
Hope that lifted your spirits. You have a
yes,
good one,
you
man.
did. Yes, you did, sir. Have a good one. Hey, you see, that's one of Donald is one of my good magas, folks. Thank you, brother. You have a good day.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
All right, let's go to Brother Bruce. Come on in, Bruce.
Good morning, Egberto. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I grew up in the Baptist church. I'm a humanist now, but I will say this. If everybody would do unto others as they have them do unto you, all the wars in the world would go away. And I want to address Tag's analogy of the bus. I originally was going to say, well, Donald wants us all to go to the back of the bus like before, and we have to rise up and be all like Rosa Parks. But what I'm going to say now is that he won't let you on the bus unless you have some money to pay to get on the bus. Anyway, I'm done. And I'm sorry about the Pope. He was a good guy. I'm done.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Bruce. And yes, the Pope was a good guy. I really like the Pope. And, I hope the next Pope we get reflects a Pope that understands that the world right now is in danger. And the principal danger is the direction that many in the United States are trying to push this country. And, we just love to blame Donald Trump. We just keep throwing out Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that, etc., right? But I want to tell you guys, Donald Trump isn't smart enough to really damage the country the way it has been so far damaged and being damaged. He doesn't have the intellect to do that. He doesn't know much about anything. It's the people behind him that one has to be aware of. It is so important for us to see that. And all that is occurring right now, we have been speaking about and telling you about for months. Project 2025. All these things that they're doing is a part of this document. First, to destroy government as we know it, to privatize and control it as, you know, as any fascist will. Their biggest problem is the Constitution. And with that, they've bought judges, and we'll see how this runs. But again, the great thing about it is, just like Paul Revere, when they wanted to get away from the crown, formed that part of being the resistance. And remember, our founding fathers in today's world would be called terrorists because, you know, that's what they would be called for going against the current governmental system. We, the people of the United States, must decide if we want that change that Project 2025 represents. And I'm sure we don't. I'm sure women don't. I am sure when you start a government and your first thing is to get rid of DEI, it's not something that gives women and minority unfair access to success, unfair access to jobs, but simply says it's not going to be only the good old boys that are employed or the good old boys that are thought of. Everybody's resume must get to the table, as opposed to just a select group getting to the table. That's all DEI is. And the distortion that we've allowed it to become is just that, a distortion. Anyway, there's a piece that I want to do. First, let me see. I'm at 37. I'm going to do the new GOP talking points first. I'm going to do the new GOP talking points, and then we'll take it on the other side. Bear with me 1 second. I think I have that all queued up. Here we go. You know that Bernie Sanders and AOC are doing something special, and you know that Donald Trump is actually doing something that's starting to freak out Republicans and MAGA when you hear them equate Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, and AOC. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Marc, one of the parallels that is being drawn in this moment is to the inception of the Tea Party movement, which we all remember started during the Obama administration. Do you see those parallels playing out? How do you see this?
Sure. I think there's a lot of energy on the left, but I think we live in really unserious times, Kristen. I think the reality is that you're highlighting the Bernie Sanders AOC rally at the same time that Donald Trump is pursuing Bernie Sanders trade policy. The Trump administration is advocating tax increases on job creators in America. Their economic policy is exactly what AOC and Bernie Sanders would want. And that's not where the Tea Party started. The Tea Party started with cutting spending and cutting the size of government. And although the Trump administration is doing that through DOGE, you look at so many other points, as Maria actually made, about centralization inside the executive branch that is actually a lot of economic policies that are exactly what Bernie Sanders was advocating for his whole career.
Yeah, I mean, you think about a leaderless party, Maria Teresa, and remarkably, former President Biden stepped into the spotlight this week, made some pretty powerful words about President Trump, his agenda. What do you make of President Biden within the first 100 days, which is much earlier than we've seen past presidents, come out and speak out against his successor? Marc, how do you think Republicans see this moment when you do see Democrats kind of struggling to figure out what their message is? I mean, do you think it emboldens President Trump, or could we see a moment where, for example, the Egberto Garcia case backfires against the president?
Look, I think that for Republicans, look, Joe Biden's the gift that keeps on giving, and there's nothing they'd like more than to see, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden as the future of the Democrat Party, because there's not a lot of future there. So I think for Republicans, sure, this is emboldening to see how sort of disorganized the Democrat Party is. But, on the legal front, Kristen, I think in the last week we have seen something different where there have been district court judges that Trump appointed appointed ruling against him. You highlighted the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, a Reagan appointee having a very strong decision against Trump, and now even the Supreme Court. So I do think we're at a different point today.
Now, Martin Short has some nerve. First of all, they realized the power of the oligarchy movement, the move against the fight against the oligarchy that Bernie Sanders and AOC are going around the country and working on. And they're scared because this is a populist movement that is actually showing support from the people. Then, of course, you know that the media, the mainstream media, isn't playing the Bernie Sanders oligarchy tour up as big as it really is. And then, of course, we know the thousands of protest marches around the country in red states, blue states, purple states. They're not covering as they would have covered the Tea Party. So when Kirsten Weckler asks him, do you think this movement, like the Bernie Sanders AOC oligarchy movement, is actually going to be serious like the Tea Party was? Oh, he comes back and he says, no, I look at these as not serious times. After all, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump is doing everything that Bernie Sanders and AOC wants to do. And that's not where we are. Martin Short is false, but it's a new narrative that they're going to try to push if it works. And what is it they're going to say? They're going to say, when Donald Trump starts his decline, well, he's already started decline, but they're going to start equating Donald Trump with Bernie Sanders, AOC. And why are they going to do that? Because the populist movement by Bernie Sanders, AOC is taking off, and they want to hold back the Republicans because a lot of Republicans are going to say, well, I can't deal with Bernie Sanders. The problem is many of those folks at Bernie Sanders, AOC's rallies are Republicans, are independents. They are people who the Trump tariffs are killing. The small business persons, I've interviewed quite a few of them that are getting trashed by what they don't know about the tariffs and how the tariffs are going to affect them. The policy of killing Medicaid, all these things that Donald Trump has in place to do with his massive tax cut to the wealthy. So when Short tries to equate the two and say, oh, Donald Trump is implementing Bernie Sanders and AOC's policies, first of all, it's a complete lie. Bernie Sanders stands for Medicaid. Bernie Sanders stands for Medicare. Bernie Sanders stands for the workers. Bernie Sanders doesn't stand for raising the price on products. Bernie Sanders supports wage increases. Bernie Sanders supports, unions. All the things that Donald Trump has cut, even within the federal government. So we can't buy the Kool-Aid. We can't drink the Kool-Aid. We have to call these guys out immediately when they try to switch and change the narrative. And that is what Short did. The only disappointment here is that we had a good Democrat, a good progressive on that panel that pretty much that went, and again, it happens, right? But it flew right over her head what Martin Short was starting there. And you are going to see that narrative as Donald Trump loses in popularity. You are going to see that narrative make the rounds that Donald Trump is implementing Bernie Sanders policies. And if Donald Trump policies are failing so badly, then Bernie Sanders, you can't want Bernie Sanders because look at how his policies implemented by Donald Trump is actually working. It's not. But it's a lie. Donald Trump is not implementing Bernie Sanders policies. They are trying to make Bernie Sanders policies a loser by attaching it to the losing policies of Donald Trump. We cannot allow that narrative to move forward. It is imperative that everybody that goes onto a panel, when the Republican tries to spin that narrative, in other words, Donald Trump's tariff policies is Bernie Sanders policies. It's not. It is not. And we have to listen. We have to be ready. Our tongues need to be charged with truth. Our tongues need to be ready all of the times to answer the call. I was so disappointed watching the show yesterday when there was no pushback on, and that was the only thing of all the morning shows. That was the only narrative change that I saw. And that narrative change was a big deal. That narrative change was a big deal. Let's go to Brother Jimmy. Come on in, Jimmy.
Speaking about the Pope passing away, he was a good man and a good Pope. Well, I used to be a Catholic, but now I'm an atheist, a humanist. Anyway, I had a letter in the Chronicle a while back about the Catholic Church moving very slowly, and one of my lines was, "The Catholic Church moves like a turtle." And they put that up as the heading on my letter. Anyway, they're very slow, and by making changes, they have never given women the right to be priests or cardinals or pope. The next pope should be a woman. We should all shout that out. Women deserve the rights as men everywhere.
Yep, I agree with you right now. You know, that is why it irks me that women brought Donald Trump over the hump, because Donald Trump should have lost in a landslide. But remember what I spoke about, the dehumanization of people, Jimmy, is not only a thing caused by, look, black folks have been dehumanized for a long time, right? But if you take a look at what happened in Memphis, it was 5 black cops that murdered the black kid that did nothing wrong. Same modus operandi, white cop, black cop, Latino cop, it doesn't matter what kind of cop. When you dehumanize somebody, if you dehumanize a woman, or if you dehumanize women, other women also dehumanize women. It's a system. It's a system of that does that kind of stuff. And if you take a look at the Catholic Church and not supporting women as well, you know, I'm with you. You have to get over that. Anything else, Jimmy, before I jump to Augie?
Yeah, now Trump and his group, they're denigrating immigrants. He says they're criminals and rapists and all that stuff. And they're doing the same thing to immigrants that Hitler did to the Jews.
Exactly. It is a system, Jimmy. It is a modus operandi that these guys do. But Jimmy, I got a whole bunch of calls to carry. Anything else before I jump to that?
That's it. Have a great day.
Thank you, my brother. You have a wonderful day. All right, let's go to Brother Augie. Come on in, Augie.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, my brother. Talk to me.
Ryan, which means a bunch of us have to step up and do what he was talking about in the sermons. But then I also think about Jesus Christ. He was killed by religious leaders and their followers of his time because they didn't like what he was saying, they didn't like what he was doing. And that's in the Bible. And right now, we have all these billionaires that didn't like to be taxed by FDR. And so they all got together and slowly got to giving us all these things about the groups that got them taxed. They went after the communists right after World War II. And they're one of the groups that talked to FDR. The Democratic Party lets everybody in. In the early 1900s, we had the communists, the socialists, the union members that backed the Democratic Party and backed FDR. And they're the ones that told them, hey, you got to tax the billionaires. And during World War II, us, we're paying taxes and we're buying war bonds. The billionaires aren't doing anything. So he finally got the billionaires together and got them to agree to be taxed. And they didn't like that. So when the war was over, they went after all these groups one at a time. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people didn't realize it happened so slowly. And they got us to hate the communists after World War II. And then they went after the unions, and they got people to be anti-union. And then they went after the socialists. And all this time it's just happening in front of these people, but they don't even see what's happening. It's happening so slowly.
Can I interrupt you a second, Augie? Because I love what you just did. You went after the communists. You went after the union workers. Who in their right minds can be against unions fighting the corporate structure. It makes no sense. Who in their right minds can be against things that improves people's lives? And that is exactly what they teach you to do. They make something that is otherwise good bad so that then you can destroy it. I mean, that is a very central message of what you just said, brother. Continue.
Yeah, and you had a union leader vote for Trump this last election. Then after Trump was elected, he sort of said, "Oh man, I voted against myself when back Trump."
Well, look.
And,
They voted for a guy who told them they were going to institute tariff and have the other country pay for it. In their ignorance, they don't in their what I call ignorance that they are aware. Well, I can't put it that way, but they don't realize that this is a tax that they pay. Not the other countries, they pay it. But Augie, I have some other calls that I need to get to, and I only have 4 minutes left. So let's talk tomorrow, okay?
in charge, telling all these people that they're not even proven, or they're just alleged that they were criminals, being sent to a prison, a gulag, a concentration camp.
Makes no sense. Thank you, brother.
That's all you do there. Okay, bye-bye.
You have a great day, Augie. All right, let's go to Bart. Come on in, Bart.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Talk to me, my brother.
I had an alternative to your DEI. It's called MEI. And I wanted to see what you thought about it.
This should be funny. Go ahead.
It's merit, excellence, and intelligence. What do you think?
That's and I think that lines up perfectly with DEI. I think, and I agree with. You know what, Bart? This is going to be the first time that you and I are in agreement. If they want to call DEI MEI with the definition that you just gave, I would definitely stand for it, because in that regards, all the people that Donald Trump put into office, they will have to get out of there, and we will then be able to get meritorious folks, intellect, and etc. So you and I are in complete agreement, sir.
Yes, I think we are, except for the definition of DEI.
Oh, no. It's not. Nope. You said it. MEI. You gave the definition of MEI, and what you simply did not know is that DEI, that's what it actually stands for. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. The reason you have diversity is that intellect comes from all groups and not just, you know why they don't inbreed, right? You don't inbreed because if you just keep one thing one time, the faults of that one inbred thing keeps multiplying. That's how genetic works. Now, if you open the door for absolute intelligence from wherever it is formed, that's where the diversity comes in. Equity means all of us have equal access to success. And of course, it goes without saying. And inclusion, again, means everybody included. So, you, brother, sometimes I guess a clock is right twice a day, even a dead clock. Thank you, brother. Let's go to Brian. Brian, you're up.
Yeah, okay, I'm on. Are you ever going to bring up the kid that stabbed the other kid? Are you going to bring up anything about this? Or
well, should I bring up? Well, every day there are hundreds of killings in America. Which ones do you want me to choose?
How about the 3 kids that got involved in a shootout like 2 days afterwards?
No, but what I'm asking you, Brian, is I don't do crime particular in that regards. I do crime as a system, not individual, unless the individual represents a system. So my question to you, on what criteria should I have brought that up? What makes that different than all the other people that were murdered last night, the night before, and the night before?
Because the kid received $500,000 in donations. Doesn't that make it a little bit different than the average death?
Again, I don't know that.
$500,000.
I don't know that story, but I can tell you one thing. I don't know. I can frame a lot of murders in this country as being systemic. Okay, I'm not trying to absolve the murderer, but I'm trying to say a lot of these things are systemic. But I think the difference between what you say and talk and the way I speak is you are simply looking for a scapegoat for a point. I'm looking for a solution. But I am out of time, and I got to give Betty one quick time. So come on, Betty, give us your 30 seconds, and then we got to close out, my dear friend.
Oh, okay. Pope Francis pulled no punches when it comes to the nuns. He said, less drama, more smiles. Gossip kills, gossip's poison. No vinegar faces, more. Move forward. He loved Mary Mother, and he let us know it. And I'll skip the other about him, but I want to say about the turtles. I fed 2 big turtles next door across the street while I was watching my 3 boys. And I witnessed these 2 big turtles. I fed them. They lift their bodies up and they run to me for food. They're only slow because of the heavy shell and the, anyway, they have secrets. All animals have secrets. I love them and I love y'all. Bye-bye.
Love you too, Betty. Thank you so kindly. Let me pass this on to LS Studio.
Very interesting that Brian is not complaining about Mangione and all the donations to him. So there you go, Brian. There's
that is interesting. You're right, yeah. I didn't even notice that. You're right.
Why didn't Brian complain about that? Mangione was a murderer. I mean, flat out. They got him on tape. They got him in jail. He admits that he did it. Okay. So then everybody starts a GoFundMe and sending him funds for his legal fees. Why don't you complain about that, Brian? Because you don't know what you're doing. Okay, that's enough. Jack, you got anything?
Nope.
Jack says no, so take it home, Egberto.
Anyway, folks, again, condolences to the Pope's family, to the Pope's church. The Pope was a good person. Anyway, folks, you can contact me directly at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com, and I answer all my emails. You can see the rest of the show at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what?
Out. Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host,